No, because it's being recorded as we
Is
speak.
the camera?
Okay.
Camera's
Paul's
on.
here just in time for the national anthem, or the...
The national anthem?
the-
You gonna
Yeah,
sing?
he's...
Everything's
will be a
hooked up,
national
we're
anthem.
on.
Or pledge.
I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all. All right. Welcome, Paul. Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. That's what I try to do. Morning, everybody. Seems, I don't know if you noticed, Public Works worked with our line striper. They removed the bike sharer lanes out in front of the Rusty Nail the other day, so that's been restriped in that area. Project moving forward, you can see new crosswalks. So we're installing brick crosswalks across Washington Street at Franklin, Victoria Tower, and up at Ocean. So they'll have the brick crosswalks. And before...
Is that just like the paint? It's not real brick?
No, that's real brick.
A real brick?
Real brick.
Wow.
Yeah, the county did the painted stuff. We did real
you
brick.
should.
We did real
Maybe you should
brick.
do that, yeah.
Yes, so we did do that.
Awesome.
And then hopefully, I'm still waiting for the line stripers to paint the rest of the crosswalks down Washington. And then they also have to come up and finish up the parking stalls up at Cove.
Okay.
The work on the promenade is moving along. They'll be breaking for, obviously, Memorial Day weekend, but then they'll be here for like another 2 weeks after Memorial Day weekend, cleaning up and finishing up for the season, and then they'll be back to finish the whole promenade in the fall.
Okay.
Paul, they're really flying along with that project, too.
Yeah.
They're doing really, really solid work. It's great.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what are they doing on the promenade?
Doing the rehabilitation,
Okay.
and then in the fall, they'll come and actually pave it, and then probably the following spring, about this time, they're going to put the coating over the asphalt, similar to what they did between Primal and Convention Hall with that gray coating to kind of soften it a little bit, make it a little bit cooler to walk on.
Okay.
We'll come back in the spring of '26 to put that coating on.
Was there a long-term plan to extend the promenade towards Poverty Beach?
So that we've had conversations with FEMA and both of our federal legislative team, Van Drew and Senator Booker and Senator Kim's office. The project, we will be receiving funding to extend the seawall in the tune of $24 million, which is about 75% of the cost. So that project will probably, I mean, depending on how long FEMA's review, that could go out to bid to start next winter, or this coming winter. I mean.
All right.
Wow.
Sounds great.
How long does the project last, start to finish duration?
We haven't sat down and, I mean, I would anticipate 18 months. So I mean, residents should anticipate a summer season of construction on the seawall from Madison to Wilmington.
Right.
Just like it would be a Beachville. You know, there's going to be
Sure.
beach activity up there for at least one summer season. So whether it's the summer of 2026 or the summer of 2027, we're not quite sure yet, but that's,
Okay.
because otherwise if we broke and stopped for the summer, that could increase the cost. The same reason why when we do the Army Corps projects with the Beachvilles, we don't have them stop and for different timing zones. That's how you get the best pricings. And when you're talking about a $30 million project, if you're saying, okay, I'm going to increase it by 20% just so I take the summer off, those are real dollars, and the city just can't afford those kinds of exponential cost increases.
Right. Okay.
And we have a sidewalk project that will be going out in the fall.
In the fall.
That's still on schedule
What does that include, Paul, the sidewalk?
So it'd be sidewalk repairs. We're prioritizing right now Columbia Avenue and Virginia. That kind of will create a corridor from essentially one end of the town up into the other end of the town as far as getting a good sidewalk path for pedestrians, as well as we've been working with the Shade Tree Commission. There's a lot of one-off locations where there's sidewalks that have been uplifted that that have been identified through the Shade Tree process that we're going to take care of some of those sidewalks.
And we're going to go out for bids to a sidewalk repair.
Yep, yes. And then we do have on Tuesday's council meeting, I did work with GPI, the consultant that did the Safe Streets project. They worked around some of their proposals, so we are going to make a recommendation to so that they can apply for at least one of the grants that we talked about in the process.
So they're continuing.
They're going to continue, yeah. Well, as long as council approves. And that budgetary money was within the match amount that we had set up for that project anyway, so.
What about implementation or the plans?
Well, you can't implement it until we
Right.
do it,
So
so.
the next stage with them is?
They're going to be preparing an application to get additional grant funds.
Okay.
Paul, Lafayette Street Park, they put the sidewalk in from Broad.
Yeah, so,
Is that going to be usable?
yes, that'll be, so, yeah, as part of the nature trails, they've extended a sidewalk from the corner of St. John and Broad down to the nature trails. And as part of the Lafayette Street Park project, there's a sidewalk that runs from the trails straight out to Lafayette Street. So that will all be an interconnected way, and then they'll also have a connection into the school. So that was going to be critical so that when we construct the police station, the children that are walking won't have to come up and around down St. John to Lafayette, past the construction project and mess with that. They'll be able to go right from Broad Street right down the sidewalk behind the project and kind of have a safe route to school for the walking for them. As well as the public will then have another way to access the trails during that construction project.
Are you, is it on target to access the trails out on the meadows there by Memorial Day? I think that's what you told us last time.
That's what we're
Targeting.
I don't know if Steve wants to make an announcement, but part of the mayor's wellness campaign, we're doing monthly walk and talks. And so each council person is picking a month and walking with different department heads and inviting the public to come and walk and talk with a council person and some city department heads. And Councilman Bodnar is this month, and his walk and talk is next week, next Wednesday at 1:30, and we are going to get a sneak peek at the nature trails. So if you're wanting a sneak peek, or if you haven't seen some of the, I know Mayor Mullick and some different people have put some drone shots and different videos online, but if you're looking to get a sneak peek walk up onto the nature trails, Councilman Bodnar will be leading us on a walk over to that, meeting at the parking lot at St. John and Lafayette around 1:30 for a nice afternoon stroll on the new nature trails.
So Paul and I had a chance to talk about that. I was glad that I knew that I was going to have an opportunity to do that wellness walk next week. Had a chance to pick any place in Cape May as far as where to do it, and we talked about it and said, "Do you think will the nature trails be open? Can we have it there?" And
It's not going to be fully open. There's actually a small section. They're still waiting for some material to get in, but there's sufficient enough that we could be able to walk down the path and up out into the meadows and see the meadows to have a good walk.
yeah, so I was
As far as
going to
the
extend that to
individual
everybody here. If you
homeowner-
want to come next Wednesday, as Paul said, 1:30. That's where we're going to meet. So that's a chance to come out and walk around, literally get the lay of the land, right?
Yep.
Excuse me, as far as the individual homeowner who has a broken sidewalk that needs repair, will they still be responsible for 50% of the costs?
Yes.
So that's not changing?
That's not changing.
But Do they make an application individually and considered
It's usually,
by?
well, it's usually part of the Shade Tree Commission process, yes. They got to work through the Shade Tree Commission.
Okay.
Paul, if I could I'm sorry, if you could just add, you had talked about the promenade, didn't want to skip over as well, the other work that's going on the beach as far as with the beach mats. You might want to bring everybody up to speed with that as well.
So Public Works started on Monday laying out the next section of ADA mats out on the beach, going from essentially Howard down to Madison. I think they're about a block short right now of Madison. And so essentially, you'll be able to walk out on the beach on the beach access mats for the full length of the promenade. So if you want to make a circuit, you'll be able to make a little
Nice.
circuit down on the beach and then up on the promenade and make a loop out of it.
And a question,
And just as a reminder to everybody listening on YouTube, bicycles, skateboards, rollerblades are not permitted on the beach walk.
that was my question.
It's just not wide enough
No.
to be out there safely. So I just want to remind the public that, we will be, asking them to not be there. The same way we don't ask for bicycles at certain times of the day on the promenade. It's not safe, because down on the access mat, it's just not wide enough.
will that be posted somewhere?
It is posted.
Is it
At
For the mats.
each beach access,
Right.
it is posted
Good.
that no bicycles beyond this point, essentially.
good?
That sounds great. I had the opportunity to do the Revolution Rail thing with my family.
Yeah.
So I'm looking across the meadows and I see all this, the beach, the meadow walk.
The trail.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm thinking, that's the school. That's that new walk. I
Yep.
mean, it's pretty extensive.
It is.
That's
Yeah.
a-
Yeah.
There's four observation platforms out there to be able to sit out there. There's 2 osprey nests that are right there close to be able to watch and take a look at. So
Yes.
it's a great
It really is.
it's a great spot. This past week, after these little bit of rains, the gnats are a little bit unbearable out there. So be prepared for
That's
some
the wetlands thing.
You're in the nature and the wetlands, and the gnats and the mosquitoes. They're not afraid to come visit you yourself.
Go out during a breeze.
Yes, yes.
So that entrance from Broad and St. John, the only path access is that sidewalk, and how wide is that?
No, there'll be 2 accesses. There'll be a sidewalk from Broad, the corner of Broad and St.
Right.
John, and then there's also a sidewalk out at Lafayette Street that goes straight back in. It's essentially, I think it's Queen? I think it's just down,
Right.
just almost opposite Queen. It's not lined up right with Queen, but it's just right there with
And
Queen.
how wide is it?
6 feet?
6. And so there's no other gravel car path or anything like that off of, I guess that's where the police department comes in. In other words, there's no back access to the parking lot or anything like that?
What parking lot?
Well, is there gonna, behind the police station, there's gonna be a parking?
Yeah, eventually
From a
there'll be,
Lafayette parking
eventually there'll be a large parking lot for Lafayette Street Park that you'll have access to
Right,
that.
so is there car access at that area, on the
Not-
corner?
Well, today you can
get
park,
in front?
today you can park at on St. John, at the St. John lot. Once the construction activities stop for the summer, where we allowed people to park on the Lafayette Street grass lot, on the Lafayette Street Park in the grass, we're going to open that back up so that people can park. on
Going
the-
forward or just for now?
Well, once the construction, I mean, I can't have you park there now because there's construction
Right, I
activity going
understand.
on.
No, I'm talking.
For this summer, you'll be able to.
plan in the future,
Well, the plan in the future is there's going to be basketball courts, pickleball courts
Right.
there, restroom, and parking.
okay.
So
I
that's
guess I'm
the
not
that's the
clear.
long term.
So the parking's behind, basically behind and on the corner of
No,
planned parking?
the parking actually runs from Lafayette Street all the way back. If you look, there's plans online. If you go to
Okay.
on the city website, up at the top, the scrolling link for construction projects, if you scroll down, it has a full set of plans.
Right.
that shows the layout of
I
it.
guess quickly, I was just wondering if there's going to be car traffic by that sidewalk?
Yes.
In the
It's-
back?
There's a entrance to the parking lot next to the new building that's going to be built between the path
Okay,
and the building.
Yeah.
But it's cut off by, there's a grassy area
Yeah,
between,
there's curbing, just like every other parking lot. There'll be,
okay.
yeah.
Can
There's
you
two
send-
entrances to the parking lot.
Can you
One-
send me that?
It's on the website. Just-
yeah, he's looking at it on the website.
I'm-
Yeah, yeah.
I hope
Yeah,
it's
that's
open-
right.
it's open
Okay.
up. Yeah, you have to have two exit entrances
Right,
to
that's what I
the
thought.
parking lot. Did you guys decide what you're going to do in terms of pay for parking in that lot? And
I don't, I mean, it hasn't been finalized and discussed if that'll be a pay lot or not. I mean, there's a likelihood that it won't be paid, because I think that's going to be the encouraging part is, hey, that's a overflow relief area to encourage people to park there, just like we encourage people to park at the school. And getting people to park down that way to help relieve congestion, whether it's on Beach Avenue or around the mall, that's where, it's not that far of a walk.
No,
You know what I mean?
it's a
I mean,
great-
even really from walking to City Hall,
Yeah.
it's a
I
nice,
parked there today.
it's not a,
That's where I park.
it's an easy,
Right.
it's an easy walk.
I mean, you have pros and cons to doing it and don't, because people leave their car, then people want to say use the dog park or play pickleball. They're temporary, then there's no spots. And then if you do pay, then you're paying $10 to play pickleball.
But I mean, I think,
So is there,
I think history will show that it's not going to be over parked, except on those busy 4th of July, the Christmas parade. You know what I mean? Those really big event days that we have really large crowds in
I
town.
mean, I'm at the dog park every day at like 4 o'clock, and I can tell you on the weekends even now, that parking lot's
Yeah, see-
full, and the people are parking still on the field
In the
because the
field.
door is open, so.
But I think last summer, we did not see that grass field full, except for some of those
Really busy weekend.
really, the big holiday type weekends, or obviously on the
Well, it's
Christmas
an
Christmas
exciting
parade.
project. It's great, and all the amenities.
I think people are now starting to see, it's been, I mean, obviously predated my tenure, but, 10, 15 years of waiting, the city's now starting to see this progress, and I anticipate, so I'll just give you a little update. We anticipate the police building starting construction this fall. It will be completed by, I'll say, spring of '27.
So 18
At
months.
18 months, and we will start construction on that last phase of Lafayette Street Park during the winter, spring of 2027, so that the hope would try to be, I mean, I don't know if we'll be able to get it that close, that we can try to get that last phase of Lafayette Street Park open before July 4th of 2027.
So
So that's, essentially 2 years from now, we should have a completed Lafayette Street Park Police Headquarters complex
So
area.
the sequence is, you're finishing up the sidewalks, the bocce, the dog park. You'll close the dog park, you close the parking lot. You'll start, in the fall, you'll start building that building and the parking lot.
Well, the parking lot would be at the tail end, because the parking lot for the
It's a
Lafayette
staging
Street
area.
Park is the staging area that I need to build the building. So as soon as I don't need that staging area, and really for the police station building is when I'll let that contract for that parking area and the rest of the
So
park.
will you allow people still to park on the field while that's occurring? Or will everybody have to park?
It's going to,
Yeah, I know you probably don't know the answer. I just.
during that's going to be a real fluid situation, and really, it's going to dictate on what does the contractor need.
Yeah, in terms of space.
Because they will take priority over what their needs are, because the priority will be at that point is getting the police station building completed.
Well, it's a great project, and thanks for doing it.
So in addition, the field had been has been essentially the de facto parking lot for the library as well. But now there's additional parking.
So-
Because the paving has been completed as far as with the city parking lot with the additional spaces right next to the library.
But the city hall parking is really not for the library. That's for city business, official city business only. We are next Monday, starting next to the AME Church, there'll be a parking lot with about 8 to 9 spots that will be available for library patrons to be able to park and walk across the street.
Am I wrong? Aren't there a couple spots directly opposite the library entrance door as well? I thought there were a couple disabled.
There's handicap, but those 2 spaces are actually will be for staff. Now that we've
They're for staff,
relocated,
okay.
it's for staff for the library.
Okay, I saw that they were
They have-
disabled spots, and I thought,
There's 2 disabled spots. The 2 disabled spots, yes, they are spots for the library, but the other 2 non-disabled spots, are for library staff.
okay, I just mentioned that because I know that there's been, for a number of people, that the Lafayette Street lot is close enough, but it's still, if you have mobility issues, it's still a bit of an
Well, they'll
issue.
have-
And I know some people have commented about having that access. So if anybody's listening, are a couple spots there now that are open up for,
Well, you'll have
vehicle.
about 8 or 9 spots across the street at the AME Church
Yep.
to park at.
Is that the
Where-
lot to
where the old
left
CC
that you took down?
Where the CCA, the former CCA building was, that's where we took that down. That'll be a parking lot.
And that's all you can get on there is about 8, 9 spots?
Yep.
I mean, strictly for parking?
Yep.
Great. One other question, down by the Cove, going down, I took a drive down there, and it seems like you've taken all the meters out, and so, is that correct? And so you'll start doing the app, is that what the plan is?
Well, you could always use the app.
I'm sorry?
You could always use the app. in
Right,
there.
but
You
the
don't, you didn't
meters
have
are
to.
gone. It's
The
the
meters are
only way.
gone, right, and we'll be putting kiosks down. So similar to the kiosks we have at the Jackson Street lot and on the backside of both Carpenter and Lyle Lane, we'll be putting, at this point, probably 4. So we're going to be putting 2 down between Broadway and the Cove, and then there'll be 2 up closer to Convention Hall.
when do you anticipate having those up, Paul? The kiosks? I
Next
mean, I
week.
know they're doing, the
Within-
contracting
shortly.
still- Yeah.
Shortly.
Okay. I mean, at this point, there's a need for it because that area, you can't park there because there's.
Yeah, the
area
construction
along the-
activity is going on.
Yeah, the construction work's going. So it's just going to be coordinated with when they're cleaning up and moving off, popping in the kiosks and,
And really, as part of that promenade project, we will be opening up, they just constructed 2 new ADA ramps in that section between Grant and Broadway. There's 2 new, I'd say between Grant and Second, there's 2 new ADA ramps to get up onto the promenade in that section where there was no ADA ramps prior.
I have to say, I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just because it's part of the construction project. They look really wide to me, in a good way. They look wider than some of the others. They're probably not, but I think maybe it's just such a dramatic difference from what was there, the narrow stairs that were there, and seeing just the ramps that are there. They look really, really good. Regarding the kiosks, I imagine, the city's always really good about putting out information to the public as far as when something like that is installed. I'm sure we're going to have something on
Yep.
social media and
Yeah,
something on
once they get
the
up,
city
we'll do some-
website to just be able to inform the public as far as just when those kiosks are up and where they're going to be located as well, just to make it convenient for people.
Yep.
Then I have one more somewhat personal question, but also from my neighborhood. With all that construction going on, starting at the police, for the police station, are you intending, or at least considering, that all the staging area would be in that big lot, the grass lot, rather than a lot
Yeah,
of
we won't-
trucks and stuff going back and forth to the permit parking lot? in
Yeah, we
Bank Street?
won't be storing any equipment on Bank Street for this project.
Good to know. Thanks.
Okay. Paul, I have, just under old business there in front of you, rather than me ask you about them, if you could just go down the line. the safe route to school thing, I don't see any activity with bike lane.
Yeah, I'll have to reach back out to Bob Church. That was a county project.
Yeah.
So I'll have to reach,
Pennsylvania County Road?
no.
Okay.
But they were implementing all the safe streets.
Okay.
The city did not have any safe streets funding to do
Right,
safe streets
okay.
roads
Yeah, that
projects.
was a grant of some, it's been going on for a long time. And, yeah, we'd like to get that, if we could, get that up and running because it's a safety issue. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, you said, you were asking about the bike lanes, or?
Yeah, safe route to school from the
Right.
Coast Guard base all the way to the
Right.
school.
For some reason, they didn't do it,
They didn't do it, yeah.
and it's important, very important.
Yeah, Paul and I had an opportunity to talk
Yeah,
about that this past week as well, because I actually went, before that, I went and actually reviewed the plans for them after our last
Yeah,
meeting.
the construction
here.
plans did
And-
not, that's what I'm saying, none of the city projects had any,
Which surprised me, because I knew it was a subject of discussion, and it predates my being on city council. I don't
Predates
know.
me.
I don't know what happened. It may have predated, as far as some of those final decisions, you're being city manager.
it predates
as well.
2023.
So, but I do think it's, just as Jeff said, I think that's a critical route for the school traffic, school traffic for the Coast Guard community. Additionally, it's just a fantastic route to traverse between Madison and Pittsburgh, simply because of the width of the road, and it's pretty much, I mean, it's an ideal area to have
Right.
like a bike lane in there, simply because of the width of the road. So if we could do that, and candidly, I think it would also, it's safer for cyclists, but I think it also would.
I mean, unless the county has funds and as part of their project, it's nothing that the city has
Right. Yeah.
funds to do or would have to apply for a grant to do it.
So I think it's something for us to keep on our list as far as communicating with the county, certainly. And at some point, it's noteworthy for us as well, at least to take into consideration as far as if there is funding available for it at some point.
And then you had under there, I mean, I think I hit all the projects, they're all part of what I talked about, so GPI will be applying for at least one of those, so the other ones will just stand aside. I updated the sidewalk project. The First Avenue Bike Bridge, we're coordinating a meeting with, trying to get in front of the county open space program to see about grant funding. So I believe we're trying to coordinate a meeting possibly next week.
Yeah, 19th. I think it's the 19th.
I didn't get confirmation.
They didn't get
of that.
confirmation,
I
but
didn't
it's
get confirmation, right, that's,
That's the target.
yes. So we're just waiting for when we can get to the county to see about that project.
What was I going to say?
I got,
Bike map funding, yes. I've sent you a couple of emails. Is there,
Well, I
how
need-
would we go about getting the
Well, you-
funds to pay the printer to?
Well, you got to get me some quotes and figure out where the rest of the money's coming from
Okay.
besides just the city funds, because I don't think I had it budgeted for all of that, but I'll have a approved budget. Hopefully, council approves the budget on Tuesday. So that's more of a question for Councilman Bodnar. But
No, I
as long as council approves the budget,
Two of you, yeah.
and then probably a week later, we can get access to those funds and, start looking at it. So,
Okay. Yeah, so we need to get a quote.
Quote and-
Go from there and talk to West Cape May and, yeah. All right, because the map, short of, if we don't have one, then there's nothing for people to use. And so I think it's critical that we get that out and modify it the way we thought we were going to.
funny enough, Congress Hall, Curtis Bashaw, I guess from him, there is a map at Congress Hall, a little fold-up map that they have that's pretty clear. It's a good one, but just as a backup. But we're not going to order as many as we did initially, because we figure more and more people are using their phones. But we'll get a quote.
No worries.
I just have a question on the top 3 implementation projects. Are each of these defined as an actual project? I mean, is there a
No.
project plan?
No,
or a
not.
manager?
As we've talked about this, we have to apply for a grant to get funding to implement those plans. So I was able to get GPI to work their numbers, and they revised some of their stuff, and so that their council on Tuesday has a resolution to authorize them to start to prepare the grant application to get funding. So I mean, yeah, those are all projects, but they're not projects until I get funding.
And you need external funding. You're not looking for any,
I have,
Out of
yeah,
the
I have,
city
I have, I have no city budget money to fund those projects at this point.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
just a clarification, for instance, with the Safe Route to School. You make all these plans, you have to get the money, and if you don't get all the money, then they kind of cut back, is that what happened with Pennsylvania Avenue?
I wasn't here, so I don't know, I have no idea.
But the process usually is you make the plan, and then you get the grant money. Because
And then
then you
First thing
obviously,
I think Paul is saying is that he needs to get the grant money to do the study to create the plan.
Right, because that's what we talked about, was updating the
Right.
Cape Island bike plan. You know, there were 3 distinct projects that we discussed.
Right.
Each of those would require 3 distinct applications
Right.
for funding to implement, and it's not to implement them, that's really just to design,
Right.
to design it.
Then-
Then you go out, and then you apply the
More
next time to go get construction money.
So that's what, I mean, and we all do understand that that's what that action plan was about.
The action plan was to create what projects
Yes.
we should go after.
Right.
So it's like a 3-step process. Now that we know what plans we want to go after, now I got to get money to design those plans.
Right.
And then once the plans are designed, then I have to go try to get money to implement the plans. So it is not a short process. You know, obviously, if city council wanted to add one of those projects into the capital budget as a standalone city wanted to pay for the project, we could. If you looked at my capital budget presentation, there was a pretty robust list of projects that the city was implementing. I'm not sure if council would want to add a project on there or not, but that would be up to city council to Steve to kind of work with council and me to add a project if we wanted to fund the project through city capital funds. This process, we're trying to use federal funding
Yes.
dollars to pay and to implement these
No,
projects.
thank you for your patience.
No, it's your patience that I need.
Yeah, but
everybody's patience.
I sort of have to keep this on the old business thing, or else I'll forget about it.
Sure.
So,
And this is a significant step, the resolution and going forward
And
to
starting
get,
this-
to get that grant for this particular application. I mean, it's a significant step in that process.
Yep.
So, as Paul said, I think you just got the proposal, I think, from GPI,
We
the
just-
end
we just
of the
went back
month.
and
So
forth,
we're
so-
moving as quickly as we possible can at this point to try to get the
Yes.
resolution on before city council. So you just got the information from GPI, and the resolution is scheduled to be presented to city council in this coming week.
okay, that sounds
Well-
good.
Then one more question on that. Who is looking into each one of these projects? Is that you, as to where we might get some money to design these projects?
We only have 2 places to get money. I can apply to the federal government through this process, or the city pays for it out of their capital improvement funds. Those are the only 2. There's not a matter of looking places. I know where to look, and at this point, we are making an application to the federal government to get the design for one of the 3 implementation projects. If council so chose to fund one of those projects individually, they could, but they would have to use their capital funding to do so.
Well, again, my
And
question.
and
sorry
currently,
for
it's
being-
not on the list for this year's capital budget to implement one of these projects at this point.
All right,
Well, I'm sorry, I'm being a pest here, but what's going to happen between now and, let's say, our meeting in September
Nothing.
on each one of these four things?
Nothing except GPIs will hopefully be authorized to work on one of these grant applications and get it submitted over the summertime. But other than that,
That's a council decision then, huh?
if they wanted to include something in the capital budget to fund one of these projects, yes, that would ultimately be a council discussion. So really, between now and September, I'm going to, besides saying, hey, we've submitted a grant application for one of the projects, there will be no other update needed because there's nothing else I can do.
right,
Gotcha.
right.
Thank you.
Unless council puts funds in their capital appropriation, which at this point, I haven't requested it through council, and, you know, Steve and I can have a discussion offline about whether or not we want to or not, but, I mean, well, I guess there is a project, so there is a cost share for the First Avenue bike pedestrian bridge. So to the extent I do have a project that is on this committee's radar that is in the capital budget.
Yeah, it's, I mean, there's, you know, there are two ways, as Paul said, to go about, you know, getting the funding for this. And we, at this point, as far as with the city funding, as far as with the capital projects, the bridge project is on this year's list. I mean, there's a number of competing priorities to get on the list. I mean, I know we would all like to get all of our projects done, and I know maybe, and we may all have our own individual take as far as what should be the number one top priority. But, you know, at this point, I know that the focus is working to see what we can do as far as to try to move forward with the federal, to see what federal funding we can get. It doesn't mean we can't continue to have discussions with, you know, for other funding it differently as far as the capital project with city funding. But right now, I mean, we do have a pretty ambitious program of capital projects for this year that are already being.
And we included the First Avenue Bridge because obviously partnering with West Cape May, they jumped on it as, you know, it only made sense to leverage a work with West Cape May in doing that project, moving it forward as compared to saying, okay, West Cape May, sorry, we're not doing that. Let's work on speed humps on Washington or one of the other traffic measures within town. That has good merit, you know, that, you know, I mean, so I think everybody decided that was going to be the best way to leverage dollars to get a project on the ground sooner rather than later because of, we can get open space, county open space funding for a project, whereas we can't get county open space funding to implement a bike plan or to do some of these other projects. So it's just a matter of leveraging what dollars we have.
Paul, just, you
And best.
probably didn't know this, but we're going to look at going to NJDOT with their excess funds for their
Yes.
local aid. So theoretically, your capital budget will stay, because
Yes.
we're hoping.
Right,
We're hoping. So we'll see what happens with that.
yes.
And we'll take that money and do another little thing.
It's
Right, and if-
project specific, well, that's.
Yeah, but if that money will stay in the capital and then I can earmark that for another, you know, we talked about, maybe we look at the traffic movement between
Bank across the Decatur.
Bank up to Lafayette and across to Decatur, you know, that could be something that I could move some of those fundings around to help hire an engineer to help design a smaller project, just to help re-identify and look at bike movement just between, you know, Elmira, Bank, and get it to Beach, and just try to get that corridor, you know, that could be, if we get additional funding for First Avenue, then I can use that earmark money for another bicycle
It's
pedestrian
going to be a
level
tricky
project.
thing to figure out.
So it's,
the
I
bikes
can't,
to
you know, so
cross there.
realistically, I'm not going to have many updates for you between now and September, now and the end of the year, until we can hear how some of these other funding things roll through.
And I don't know if it's possible and it's a dead in the water, but has there been any sort of discussion of closing off Decatur at the mall, right? How they did at COVID time. They had blocked off. So,
At this point, no.
right,
I mean, there could be some things we could move around, but no, we're not going to close that off.
yeah.
I
Just
mean-
looking for safety measures.
I mean, we may change, I mean, I think the most you could do is look at those series of streets and try to make more one-ways, you know, but I think really most of that area has already been converted
Right,
to one-way where it can be realistically, I mean, I think there's only one block left in that whole group that's not a true one-way street, and I don't know if it's worth converting that. I don't know what you gain at this point.
Yeah.
But we'll look at it,
Yeah.
and but that all depends on how First Avenue goes
Yeah.
and falls.
right.
Because you mentioned, maybe I'm wrong, but you mentioned maybe that could, this Elmira, Venice Bank, Decatur project could be something that Public Works could.
No, I wouldn't be, because they can't do line striping, they can't do all those other
Got
different
it.
things that I would
All right.
need to have done, so it's still going to need some outside involvement for funding.
Yeah, okay. That's-
Yeah, I guess.
Not at a great level, but it's a small project that if I can free up some of that money that we've budgeted towards the First Avenue project, you know, even if I get $70,000 off of that and I could use towards something like that, that's something I can use for it. If I got all of it off, then I could hire a transportation engineer to design it all and make sure that it meets
Yeah,
all
it's
the,
tricky.
meets all of our requirements, because it's not just a simple solution of take down a couple signs, throw some paint on the ground, and put up some new signs. You got to make sure things are, because the county, this involves a county road, the county engineer has to be involved in those discussions, and he's going to want to make sure that it's engineered in accordance with the standards. You know, I would envision that it's going to require some push-button lights, you know, to whether or not you create like a pedestrian crossing light. I mean, I forgot to mention that update. So at the crosswalk on Washington at Victoria Towers, we're switching that to a push-button activated pedestrian crossing light. Right now, it was always just
Sequence.
well, it just flashed, and so I think it loses its effectiveness to alert pedestrian or to alert motorists that a pedestrian is in the crosswalk. This will be a push button, so that it will then flash more appropriately that there is a pedestrian crossing. I would envision that we're going to need, similar fashion for that over on Lafayette to get across from Bank to Decatur in some fashion, especially just because of that intersection doesn't align perfectly.
At the Victoria Towers, you're talking about the corner of Grant and Washington?
No,
or
Victoria
mid-
Towers.
Right out here.
Right out here. The crosswalk that's
Be
essentially,
mid- It would be mid
it's,
street.
yep.
Yep,
Yep.
good.
And so our Public Works is out there putting in the foundations today for that new signal.
Yeah. I'd still like to stress and have when the time comes with getting an engineer study out there. And I know that, they pretty much cover everything. But again, going back to safety for the bicyclers, because that's going to end up being a pretty, from Bank down to the beach, Decatur to beach. And it's tricky there behind the gazebo. There's 2 lanes there. And again, reducing it to 1 lane and then have the bikes in both direction on the other lane, which I know is a big ask, but if you do close off the mall there, then you're going to have less car traffic, which makes it safer.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to be able to close off Decatur
Yeah,
in that.
anyway.
I still use that route coming into town with my bike, and if I have to walk on the sidewalk with my bike for 100 yards or 50 yards, I do that. And then I get up back on and ride the rest of the way, as if I was going to the beach.
Right. But putting bicycles on a contra of a one-way, to head down towards beach that's a difficult situation. So it's got to be looked at really closely to make sure it's signed right. Because God forbid you put something up and then an accident occurs and it's not done properly, I'm in trouble.
Right,
Right.
Not anybody sitting here,
yeah,
me.
I understand. And the engineers would know that,
That's why I'm the city engineer.
yeah. Well, and then the transportation studies that are done.
That's why I say it's not something that we can just go have Public
Right.
Works change
Yeah.
a sign.
Yeah,
You got to study it.
just putting it out there.
Actually, while we have here, do you have any update on the roundabout on Jack's? Have you heard any? Like, I know it's been possibly less,
According to Bob,
is it fall?
fall or early next year, but it most likely in the fall.
What was that?
The roundabout.
The roundabout.
I know,
on-
I know, but
Yes.
fall.
Now, that's a project
fall.
that I think didn't have any gray hair. That's when that was initiated in 2010,
It's probably as old as the Lafayette Street Park project.
about the same. Yeah, so we're excited about that one. And I think Bob also said Sunset Boulevard, likely spring of '27 to start. However, they won't start it if they can't finish it by Memorial Day.
So why don't they just start it in the fall of 20?
They're waiting for the Higby project because of the trucks
Oh, all the,
destroying everything.
everything.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
so that's kind of an
Okay.
update.
I think we hit all the projects around.
Speaking of 2010, I'm going to go back to 2012. Cape May City passed a resolution for safe streets. And so I've been using Paul Mikowitz of the New Jersey Bike Walk Coalition. It's on your agenda. And he's been basically consulting us and saying which route would be most practical for the city of Cape May to go in terms of just working with the entities at the state level, the county level, and staying within our city. And so he suggested that we might consider updating our 2012 Safe Streets Resolution. The New Jersey DOT has a 2024 update that could be used to, no? Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm ready to update it to that new version.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying now, but I mean, just put it on your radar to keep it in, we have this new Vision Zero law at the state level, which again, the landscape has changed in terms of working with the state or DOT and all that kind of stuff. And so they're going to be able to help us because it's now law. And so, but anyway, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm trying to be,
I understand, but those, to really implement it in accordance with the DOT rules puts a lot of additional layers of review, scrutiny, and delay of implementing projects that I'm not ready for.
yeah.
I understand the goals of it, but I think we try to implement those goals already as we look at designing a project and to be truly certified under that program. And if you're gonna, I'm never one to adopt a resolution or an ordinance and just have it sit off to the side and you just do it just because it felt good to do and you don't live it, breathe it, and do it.
Yes.
And when you read really what the DOT's Complete Streets process is, it would slow down our city road and project significantly.
Okay, well, that's exactly what Bob Church said to me about county roads, and.
That's why they've never implemented
Right.
a complete streets
And
program.
I just want
because-
everybody to hear that, because I can put this to rest now. That's all, I just wanted to.
I mean, the intent of this Safe Streets is to, when we were designing a road, to look at all users, and if we can make improvements to that road, we try to. But the true DOT policy really puts some implications into it that really would slow down our process.
Yeah, that works for me, thank you. Anybody else have any questions about that? Okay, great. I think, Paul, we appreciate you being on the hot seat for almost an hour,
No worries.
but it's been very informative. Does anybody else have any questions for Paul?
I won't bring up Rusty Nail and taking away the bike lane for parking.
Council decision.
Okay.
And that's part of the whole discussion with Safe Streets and that policy, and the implementation of that is those balances between parking.
Competing.
You have so many, pedestrians, bikes, vehicles, parking, moving people around. And we're in a city that, different towns talk about, oh, let's do a street diet and stuff like this, and the Wildwoods, Atlantic City, and some of the other, like West Avenue and Ocean City, and that's where they have big wide roads and areas to move stuff. We barely have room to move in our tight, because we're such an old built town, everything is tight, and in order to create true bike lanes, I would have to take away parking down lengths of streets, and
Can't do that.
I mean, it's already been done on certain streets, but you'd be talking about to truly do what we're talking about doing, we can't do, because heck, a lot of our homes, and especially in the older part of the town, they don't have parking areas. Why don't they have parking areas? Because
So no cars.
back when they were all built, there were no cars.
Go back to just horses.
You know what I mean? And, so it's just, when you're in a historic town like we are, you have to make those kind of balanced judgments, and really with the DOT's Safe Streets, it really makes it hard.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that, any sort of multiple decking, like over by the liquor store, is just dead in the water. That they don't want to spend the money on it, but that would be a very good solution to put in a multi-deck over there, but it seems to be dead in the water.
Well, and that's a city discussion that, nobody really can tackle.
They want to pay.
Well, paying for it is not the problem. That is not the problem. It's acceptance of having a multi-story parking garage somewhere in town, whether it's when they tried to do it here at the Acme, whether you're talking about, the Jackson Street Collier's lot, whether you talk about Bank Street, or, or whatever place that you want to try to find in the city that you could do it. It's a conversation that is taboo, and nobody, but, MTRAC looked at the funding source. And when I talked in front of MTRAC about that, I'm saying, that's the easy part. People, funding a facility is easy.
It's just getting it.
It's getting used. I mean, another alternative is, hey, have everybody, encourage people to park out in the named streets or in the different areas where there is not a parking issue, and use the jitney. And if we increase the jitney service, if more people used it and showed the interest, we could do it. But people don't want to use the jitney to go to the beach.
Well, they have all
Because
their stuff.
yeah, but those jitneys can have room to put stuff. They want, we're people of wanting that convenience. And, like we talked about, parking, from the mall, how many people, it's not hard to find parking. Just park down a little bit further away and walk. I mean, I talked to some people that when they come down to town, they bring their bikes and they park up in the name streets, and then they ride their bikes down to Beach Avenue and the mall. And then it's easy for them to find parking, because then they just take their bikes and then they ride back.
It's a small majority, you know.
It's a lot.
But that would, you would have to change the philosophy of how people think. Now, conversely, if you wanted to force them to do that, yeah, we could take away a lot of on-street parking, make more roads to have bike lanes and take away parking, but there again, then you're taking away parking for, now that's somebody's house where they don't have any off-street parking, and now they have to maybe walk a block because, so it's just,
Yeah, I
it's,
just don't
it's,
understand.
it's not a simple, and that's why I say funding of that type of a project, that's truly the easy part. It may cost a lot of money, but it's easier to have that, to figure out that cost structure. It's harder to change the philosophy of the community on what you want to do. And it's not an easy, it's not a,
You know, I go all over the country to different towns and stuff. You go to Naples, Florida, right in town, they have 2 multi-decks.
Yeah, but you
And
can't-
they've
yeah,
got
but-
vegetation around it, and.
but you go to those,
Savannah.
but is Naples a National Historic Landmark city? Naples is not a national, so that you can't compare what you see in Naples, in Tampa, in some of these other towns, because they're not a national landmark city, and we are. We're the only one in the country. So if you want to go to, go to, some of the go to Williamsburg and tell me what you see in Williamsburg, or go to some of these other truly historic
Well,
towns where.
Savannah is.
They're not a National Historic District, not to the extent that, they may have a small part of their town, like Ocean City has a small, they have a small historic, a lot of towns have a historic district, but to the extent that the whole town, I mean, not that whole, but the majority of our town is built in such a way that it doesn't fit.
Right.
That's the problem. So when people from all over the country come and say, oh, we did this here and this is that, I mean, they've got, you can look at some of the inner cities, and whether it's like Targets, they have multi-story Targets in places. But you'd never think about building a multi-story Target in Rio Grande, right? It just doesn't compute, because that's not that is. So when people look at, hey, that's why I say you can't look at what Naples did for parking and what they did, because what fits for Naples works for Naples, because that's what Naples is. What fits in Cape May has to fit in Cape May, because Cape May is a National Historic Landmark and we have to preserve that. I mean, we keep those 2 posters, the ones, our future is in our past. If we didn't have all this historic stuff, that's part of what makes Cape May Cape May. That's why people come to Cape May, is to see that charm of what it is. If they wanted to come to another beach town, we got a whole Jersey Shore coast of beach towns. They're all different, give you a different feel. Wildwood is different than Ocean City, is different than Sea Isle, is different than Avalon and Stone Harbor. They're all, everybody's got a little bit of different, and everybody has their favorite, because you go there for what you like. Cape May, we've got a treasure down here, and what fits in other parts of the country does not fit Cape May in a broader sense. I mean, we can take little bits of ideas, but to say, hey, they did this nice downtown parking garage and it works. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, because some people say, hey, you build a parking garage at Jackson Street and Collier's, and you build a 4-story parking garage, right? Just, that thing is going to fill up, right? And then everybody's going to be complaining, we got a parking problem. it's just going to put more people in town. So is it going to solve, is a parking garage going to solve what our problem is?
So the
Or
focus,
is changing the philosophy in our thought process of our residents and our visitors to change what their expectation is? Maybe it's being more walkable and bikeable, and we encourage dropping off a little bit early, and then, and those are all hard discussions and decisions, but I just caution everybody to say, we can't look at what another town does. You got to look at it really close to see if it fits Cape May.
Right, well, I'll forget about it.
yeah, well,
I
from,
think Savannah's a possibility, but.
from the parking standpoint, I mean, it's the issue, the issue that doesn't, that we have to deal with. The focus has been on trying to maximize the opportunities that we have for parking in the areas that we do have. I mean, Cape Island Baptist Church, the city just renewed its lease with Cape Island Baptist Church to be able to use their lot when it's not in use, and it's another pay lot that's close for the beach. It's also close for the beach business district. It's also close for the mall business district. The utilizing the city lot for nights and for weekends as well, which that was just, I think it was just within the past year or so. That's been opened up as far as being utilized in that regard, and having the additional parking that we're going to have once Lafayette Street Park is completed, but also having the lot that's on Lafayette Street now, being utilized. I mean, they may not be of themselves a perfect solution. I don't know if Cape May is ever going to have a true parking solution, because there's in this city, you come to Cape May and there's no place else to go. You can't go further south. You can't go in one direction or the other, because we're at the bottom of the island. So everybody meets here. It's popular. I think the issue we tried to focus on is trying to spread some of that congestion out a little bit. And I think that we've talked about it here before. We've talked about it in other ways as well. And Paul, you touched on it, changing the people's mindset. If we were able to, and this is not a today conversation, sometime in the future, but expand the use of the jitney service. We talked about it our last meeting here as well, in different ways, whether it's for people who are working in the business district. All those people are driving towns into the business district that work here and are here for full shifts. I mean, those are parking spots that are not available for patrons and for visitors to be able to use. So if we can use that, and just simply, what I would bring it back to the purpose of what we're here about. If we can do things to make the city more walkable and more bikeable, if anything, that shows that we should start to, not pointing a finger, but just saying philosophically, we should start to emphasize some of these ideas even more so, because it makes it more user-friendly for the visitors and the residents. As been touched on, I'm on the east side of Cape May. Particularly in another couple weeks, my biking will be limited to going from the east side of Cape May, essentially up to Ocean Street, and then I won't go further than that, because to me it's simply too dangerous to have a good bike path to be able to go to the other end of Cape May, even though it's a great biking opportunity to just bike around the other side of Cape May. Finding that route is just tough to do. So if we can focus on some of those challenges, as well as bringing people back and forth from the Lafayette Street down to the beach area, I think that's where we just need to maintain our focus. So if anything, this discussion just illustrates the needs for those.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you,
Yeah,
Paul.
thank you, Paul. What else do you have, Jeff?
What's that?
What else do you have?
That's really it. I didn't copy the second side of this, but it only had to do with that complete streets resolution. So, we have approval of the April 9th minutes. I'll entertain a motion for that.
I motion.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor? Aye. There's only three members here, but, anyway, okay.
I'd like to make just a little talk on the applying for friendlier bicycling city.
The bicycle-friendly community
Yeah.
application? Well, you have the floor.
Okay, thanks. Just a little bit of history here. When the BAPAC was started back in 2017, and I was on that committee, one of the first things we did was apply to I think it's the National Bicycle Association or something like that, to take a look and see whether Cape May would qualify as a friendly bicycle community. And this is something that there's several hundred cities, towns, villages in the United States that have applied for, well, there's probably many more that have applied for it, but are recognized as a bicycle-friendly community. And so the committee looked at it at that time. I was a significant part of that. And it was obvious that was about a 100-page application that we would not qualify. We just were nowhere near bicycle-friendly as we are now, and that we would not pass the test. Anyway, so that was eight years ago, and we have come a significant ways. So I brought up the idea a month or two ago that maybe we take a second look now to see whether Cape May would qualify. And I find out it's about a 180-page application right now.
Yeah, about 107. I checked it out.
Okay. But it's a significant amount of work. And you apply, June's the deadline. So if we did anything at all, it would be for applying for June of 2026. Can't get it done between now and next month. And I think there's really two reasons for potentially looking at this. One is there's a lot of ideas in there. And maybe as we just look at the document itself and see what are all these ideas, what is this organization looking for in a community to improve the friendliness for bicyclists in that town. And a little bit of best practices probably. Like Paul said, Cape May's not like everywhere else, and what's good for Venice or for New York City or for Ocean City may or may not be good for us. But at least we would take a look at something that's nationally approved as making a city more friendly. And secondly, I think it would be a good promotional marketing flag for the city of Cape May to say that we are as far as promoting the city, getting more bicyclists to come here if that's what the city wants, et cetera. So, and I offer to be, as part of BAPAC, a champion of this. But I'm not going to be a solo practitioner. And if our committee here thought it was a good idea to take a look at it, I would take the lead on this, but I need assistance from other members of the committee. Maybe not work on it full time, and I certainly can't work on it full time, but at least be behind the idea and offer assistance as you could for other members of BPAC. But I also believe it has to be driven by the city itself, and the city has to want to do this, whether that be council primarily, or, you know, coming down that, yeah, this would be something that's good. If the city's not behind it, above and beyond BPAC, then forget about it. Because it is a lot of work just reading it and checking off, yes, this would apply for us, no, that wouldn't apply for us. It would take a significant amount of work over the course of the next year. So this is not something that we're trying to do in the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, even next couple of months. It's probably a year-long project. So I just throw that out. And, you know, if among the four of us here or other members of the committee think it's a reasonable idea to take a look, then I leave it up to us to decide yes or no on that. I totally understand if you say no. My feelings won't be hurt. You know, it's just an idea out there for something that I think is appropriate for BPAC as our group, as our mission within the city of Cape May, and actually Cape May Island, to take a look at it. But it's, you know, I don't want to push this any more than I am right now, as far as put something on our agenda. And then the next step would be, okay, but let's get the city's okay or support to go ahead and do this. But please, I'm too old to take offense if we say no. That's not the best thing for us to do. We have other priorities.
I have a comment and a question. Comment is that the city didn't want to update the resolution for, what was it for?
Complete streets.
Right. They didn't want to spend the time on updating that. My question is, do they find with a friendly, bike-friendly community that it helps your grant applications?
Likely not. So let me just ask a question. Has anybody looked at the application?
Probably did it.
Not this year, no.
So I paged through all 107 pages, and it's crazy ridiculous in terms of what they're asking for. And it's involving working with the police department and getting their philosophy, or I don't know how to describe, but the point is that, okay, so this is how I did this. I tried to just collect information. So I call a full-time bike safety guy, Paul Mikowitz, or I emailed him, and it said, he works for the Bike Walk Coalition, which the fact that they have a paid full-time bike safety person is really significant. So he's got his hand on the pulse, or his finger on the pulse of all the programs that are at our disposal. And I made notes of it last night because I figured I'd be talking about this today. And one of them is the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization, the SJTPO. So they have a program that ties into this Vision Zero law. They have the county's getting a local road safety plan. They have a traffic safety educational program. They've got local safety programs leading to infrastructure changes. They have a Safe Route to School program. They've got design assistance program for safety projects, like we involved GPI with our safety action plan. Then there's a organization in South Jersey called the Cross County Connection, and they do bicycle pedestrian planning and safety. They conduct bicycle and pedestrian safety audits, which is kind of what trying to apply for this bicycle-friendly community. Basically, we're auditing ourselves. And according to the according to the detail that this local road safety plan application is asking for. Now, this cross-country connection also focuses on a particular intersection or a section of roadway, which kind of ties into what we need here. Like, we're looking for let's just call the Bank Decatur intersection. We can get help, there's resources that we can get help with. The governments will get a detailed report from from these audits that is a valuable step in grant funding searches. So here,
That's
thanks for.
important.
That's important. So we've got somebody who's willing to help us, who's also willing to put programs together. I've talked to David Scheffler, the recreation director for the city, and he wanted to do something before Memorial Day. Steve, you were in on that conversation.
Still wants.
Yes, and just as an aside, well, we still need to talk about that to move that forward, to see if
Yeah,
there's
we-
something that we can do about that. I know, I mean, David's not here, obviously, right now, but for the others, we've been going around as far as with Jeff, David, and myself. David's interested with the community center being opened up, making that a hub for a number of different activities in the city, and biking being one of them. It thinks that this would be is a great opportunity to expand the use of the community center, but also focusing issues regarding biking, as far as having a safety clinic, as well as even a clinic as far as like working on bikes to help get them in shape for the season as well. So, I mean, it's a little different than I think where you were going with that, but I know that David's looking to do that, and we need to circle back on that to try to set something up. He really would like to do something pre-season. We may not be able to do something as something real big. We might have to just figure what can we do in a short term to have a program before the season starts. But he also wants to do something in September as well, which we can talk about. Well, we could talk about it at any time as far as just what the scope of that would be. I think he's open to any ideas, certainly that you would have, anything that Paul would be able to offer up to us as far as from an informational standpoint. And I know from David's standpoint, he's thinking about working with local businesses in town as well that may be able to help out and assist with people literally bringing their bikes up to say, to
Learn
help
how to
out.
repair them and things like that, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's the old library is now called the community center.
It's the community center. So yes, they had the ribbon cutting was for it just last Thursday or so. So it's up and running for all the other programs that they have there, and the use is only going to expand. And candidly, right now is the idea to come up with new ideas and to reshape and add some ideas that maybe the city hasn't implemented in the past. I mean, our bottom line is our recreation department now has a home, at the community center. And biking and walking, it can't be, how much more recreational can you be with that? I know he wants to also, along the lines, I don't want to steal Dave's thunder, but I think he's thinking of the idea of getting groups together as well. Maybe people that would be interested in biking together. Maybe there might be other opportunities as well. But I think that's among the issues that he wants to discuss, to see if there's some momentum to do that. And I would say this, there's certainly the opportunity to take those ideas and work on that with the city. I mean, by doing that with the city, you have the idea, obviously, to promote it. You have a home for it as well. And Dave is invested in the idea of wanting this to succeed and get as many people, residents and visitors involved in this as possible.
Has he connected with Paul Mickle? Wouldn't that be,
Well,
we're
yeah,
kinda-
so-
we're
Well-
trying to- so just
I
have a
think I
direct.
forwarded him Paul's email, and Paul won't be available to do, his schedule's full. Something this winter he could do, but and then he could provide ideas and sort of support in terms of maybe some kind of program
Yeah, so the short answer to that is we did make that connection, and from the discussion at the last meeting till now, candidly, Paul's just too busy. He's booked up right now.
But he
So I
has
think
talked directly to Paul?
I don't know if he's spoken directly. All I know we've made the connection with, I know the connection's been made with the city, and I think actually, so it could be connected with Paul as well. I don't recall whether that's been done. I know our focus has been talking with David along these lines, but we know that Paul offers that resource too, or yeah, two Pauls, offers that resource too. So do you recall if Paul Dietrich was on those email threads that we were?
I sent it all out with the agenda. I sent out that whole thread.
With all the information that Paul
with all the
had?
information, yeah.
Yeah, so Terry, I don't know if they've spoken directly regarding that, but I know that
I know he's busy, but I would recommend from the beginning to connect with him in the beginning, rather than we start, the city, whatever, starts making all these plans, and I don't think it would behoove him for him to talk directly, because we'd be looking for all these plans where Paul knows everything.
Yes,
you know.
correct.
And just, quick
that
notes,
was my-
and then talk to him in the fall.
That was my point of saying, look, these are some of the resources that he's pointing us to. And he's saying, look, you really, because we're in southern New Jersey, we're not gonna be an entity unto ourselves for bicycle and pedestrian safety. We're gonna have to plug into some resources, meaning this SJTPO, and they've got funding abilities to do some of this stuff, and program abilities and things, and that's where he was kind of pointing us to. I'll send out those streams again, so you can just look at them. Steve, are you suggesting I hook, and it sounds like there's an impetus to get Dave to speak directly to Paul and just kind of get hooked into him as a resource for him as a recreation director, because I'm kind of excited about that, only because here's a city employee who's director of recreation who's interested in doing bicycle stuff, which is really great.
100%. So I think we need to schedule a chance to sit down and talk about that. And I think at this point we're still, we're talking about it, but yeah, I think that we want to bring in resources, and I think Paul offers a lot. I know we reached out to Paul to be part of something, as I said earlier on. I think now we're looking at it a little bit later. But yeah, David wants to do something now. So let's look at our, after this, we can look at this and try to figure out, when we can get together and have a meeting and see what can be put together.
Okay.
You can just do a Zoom meeting or something
that
like
works.
that. But that would be my recommendation, is
Yeah. So, just
back to.
circling back to Jim. I mean, no disrespect, we had the conversation before the meeting started. I just think that particular bicycle-friendly community designation would be so much work, and the mileage we would get out of it would be minimal in terms of, especially when you consider the general public. I mean, you might get some avid bike riders who are hooked into this bicycle-friendly community because it's attached to a national organization, but we need to kind of stay local, county, South Jersey Transportation Authority, and just the city itself, and just use the resources that we have available to us to develop our bike program within the city. And of course, the cities, and we just talked about Dave Scheffler, so, yeah. I'm probably not making a lot of sense, but
No, I agree
I
with
think
you. I think we
and-
have other resources that would be more prudent to follow, and we'd get more out of it than just having a status bike-friendly.
Yeah.
And I don't have the time to help you with it.
No, and again, if you haven't looked at it, if you haven't looked at that application thoroughly,
No, I only looked at the one from 8 years ago. I have
Okay.
not looked at this one. And I know the
So
one
this
from
is
8
tw-
years ago was,
and
Awesome.
this is twice the length of the one 8 years ago, because that's when I came on board here. And so I saw that too, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's, no.
Most of them are at least that long, and they're getting longer.
What's that?
I said most of those things are at least that long,
Yeah,
so,
and,
and they're getting
I
longer.
understand.
And anytime you're dealing with the state or the federal government, the checklist gets longer and longer because everybody puts their vested interests onto it, even though it's completely irrelevant to the project. That's kind of where it is.
that's called job security.
Well, that's what it is. But anyway, I think we have a member of the public might want to do some public, do we have a public comment today on this, in this meeting? Would you like to say something, sir?
I don't like 25 miles per hour and cameras all over.
I like that.
Do whatever you have to do.
I don't like 25 miles an hour. The issue, and has been discussed a lot of times, the only issue on the roads are, everything is 25 except for Sunset, which when they redo it, we're reconsidering what the speed limit, it's the county, and we're working with them. It's 25 in West Cape May portion of Sunset, but we're gonna try to lower, we're gonna have a hard time with Bayshore and New England, where the speed limit's 35 and 40. But they're the only two left, on that, Ken.
No, I would agree with you, as I ride my bike around town and people whiz by me on a 20-mile-an-hour street or a 25-mile-an-hour street, depending on whether it's.
Yeah,
county.
it's really, in my mind, it's about enforcement more than even what the posts are, right? Automatic tickets, I like it.
Yeah, you know,
Roosevelt Boulevard, 90%.
I've gotten a ticket on Roosevelt Boulevard. I hear you.
well, it seems ridiculous to me, to tell you the truth, that Washington Street and Lafayette Street have 2 different miles per hour. And I understand why. I mean, one's a county road, one's a city road. But to the average driver, they don't know that, especially coming into town. Why can't, we talk to county and let's be consistent, you're in Cape May town, let's keep it all at 20 so we can say that, but
Put a big sign on each bridge. From here on out, it's 20, here, 25.
yeah, I think that you wouldn't find much support in city council for cameras everywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
The big thing was Madison and Washington with all the residents, was it last fall or something, about that traffic light there, that people are running it all the time. I mean, that's a
no, interestingly enough,
key
just
one right there.
just expanded the use of cameras. And I think one of the upcoming meeting, I think the chief is going to be giving a presentation regarding new cameras. Look, they're on the mall for the most part, and some of the other areas,
And they're
as
not-
opposed
not
on the
speed
street. They're
cameras.
not, yeah, they're not utilized for that.
automatic
So,
speed cameras.
look, that's another issue. So,
And
you know, that we
Madison's
haven't
county.
broached. Mm-hmm.
Listen, in support of what you just said, my son lives in DC. I got nailed by a traffic camera for speeding, which I thought was appropriate speed to be traveling, but I was doing 40 and a 25, and it cost me a lot of money. And you can bet that I do 25 in that 25 now when I go into town. And so, and that's the point. And they're effective.
All right, I gotta go.
All right, so,
Sir, can I,
yeah, okay.
well, can we agree then
We're
to drop
adjourned.
the idea about,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine,
do we need to make a motion?
it saved me a lot of work over the next year.
No, we're good. We're off.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, 11 o'clock, we adjourn. Motion to adjourn?
Yes. Second.
Okay.
We're adjourned.
Okay, so, I think Dave may be away, or he's going to be going away. He's been focused on getting that community center opened up, which
Good job.
I'm actually gonna see you right now.
Jim, how are you?
Thanks, guys.
Sir, what is your name? What is your name?
Okay, okay.
Ken,
Nice to meet you.
last name? L-E-M, sorry, L-E-A